My name is Caleb, and I was raised in a Christian home. And for as long as I can remember, I loved the Lord. I was talking with him was a normal part of my everyday life. I gave my life to the Lord at the age of 5, and nothing really changed because I already had a degree of relationship with the Lord at that point. Around the same time, I was molested by some older neighbor boys, and I didn't know how to process that. An adult wasn't aware of the situation, and no one was there to step in and help me process that. By the time I was 8, I was called gay for the first time. And by the time I hit puberty, I noticed same-sex attraction exclusively. I didn't want to be a burden on my parents. I didn't want to be a burden on my family. And so I shoved all of my emotion and all of my feelings as deep as I could get them. And I started taking care of everybody else. It wasn't until I ran away to a faith-based organization that I really shared my struggle with anyone. And when I went to this faith-based organization, I shared for the first time. I was met with kindness and compassion, and people still weren't totally sure how to walk with me in that journey. It wasn't until I came on staff with that organization that I really found people who would walk with me in that place. And after my first year on staff with that organization, I was burnt out, I was a little bitter, and I found myself in a codependent sexual relationship with another man that I never wanted. And yet it was meeting a need that I had. And that lasted a couple months before the Lord separated us by a move, and I ended up back at this organization where the Lord started prompting me to have a conversation with my leaders. And I thought, that is a terrible idea. I thought I was going to be asked to leave and told to never come back. And truthfully, I didn't think I would survive that if that happened. I had finally found a community of people that I loved and that I wanted to do life with and that knew my story and weren't afraid of it. And yet sharing this new piece of my story was a terrifying thought. So it took me about 6 months to finally have that conversation with my leader. And I went into that conversation shaking and terrified. And he asked a few good questions just to figure out where I was at and how I was doing with my journey at that moment. And then he said 3 things. He said, number 1, I forgive you. And I didn't actually realize how much I needed to hear that. I knew that God had forgiven me. I was absolutely not going to forgive myself, and I was not convinced that people would forgive me. The second thing he said is, my opinion of you has gone up, not down, because I know how hard it was for you to share this with me. And then the third thing he said was, we're going to figure it out together. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't alone in the journey. For the first time in my life, I'd found a community of people who were safe enough to walk with my mess and invite the Lord into that space. And they didn't have a clue what they were doing half the time, but they believed that Jesus could meet me. And in that space, in that community, I was able to interact with the Lord, to learn about my identity, to actually find out who is Caleb and how is Caleb even masculine? Because I disconnected so significantly from my masculinity. And the Lord began healing wounds from my past through this incredible community and through simple interactions with him. About a year after that conversation with my leader, I finally met someone who had a testimony of walking out of LGBT themselves. And I chased them down at a conference after a breakout session and just quickly said, this is my story, what do I do? And she said several things, but the thing that stood out was lean into the worthiness of Jesus. And I thought, I can do that. If nothing changes in my life, Jesus, you're worthy. And from that place of saying, Jesus, you're worthy, and if it never changes and I die and I still struggled, it's gonna make sense when I meet you, when I see you face to face. From that place, I started to encounter the goodness and the kindness and the faithfulness of Jesus in ways that I can't even describe, but I suddenly realized he's not just worthy, he's worth it. And you can't convince me that he's not. And I started encountering the Lord in so many significant ways, and the healing that started to take place in my life from just learning what it meant to be a son, to be a disciple, to walk with him, to walk with community. Everything started to change from that point. And I did my life with that same community for the next 8 years because I thought, this is where I'm going to find the healing and the hope that I need because I've already found it here. And so much has changed in my life since. I went from being exclusively attracted to men to unexpectedly seeing attraction to men diminish and experiencing opposite sex attraction, not really struggling with same-sex attraction that often anymore. So much has changed because of the kindness and the goodness of Jesus in my life.